Hello everybody and welcome to South Africa, more specifically the low-veld eastern part of South Africa, where we're sitting in the wonderful Kruger National Park and a small private piece of it called Kunyuma within the Sabi Sands. It's all a very complicated network of things, but you'll get used to it as you travel with us through this wonderful wilderness journey. You are currently looking, apart from my ugly mug, at a little hyena cub that seems to be about to disappear into its den. The two adults were here earlier and the two youngsters were playing. These two, there were two of them of that age, roughly, I think they're about 6 months old now, and they've just disappeared now into the den, so we probably won't hang around here. You are with WildEarth on a live dawn safari, which is very spectacular for us, and I hope equally as spectacular for you. If you're perhaps a new viewer, you are most welcome. Please stay on the site and enjoy the game drive with us, and we'd love to interact with you. You can speak to us on Twitter, #SafariLive, or on the email at questions@wildearth.tv. My name is James Hendry, and I will be one of the presenters taking you around this wilderness wonderland today. On camera with me I have Andrew, who has a burgeoning beard. He's starting to look a little bit like Robinson Crusoe. On the other vehicle we have got Scott and Jean-Dre on camera, and in the control room we've got Nikki and Louise, and somewhere around the place fixing the satellites and the radio waves and everything else that makes this broadcast possible, we've got Alex and Eugenius. And that is the team for this morning. Thank you to all of our zoomies, and a zoomie, for those of you who don't know, monitors and moves some of the cameras that we have stationed around the world at various water holes and nesting sites and other places of wildlife interest. And they do a great job and help bring the wonders of the wild to all of you. So thank you to you. Special shout out this morning. My plan, so come and have a quick look here, and we've just had that view of those little hyena cubs. The adults have just moved off to go foraging or sleeping or whatever they're going to do now, probably foraging. My plan is to head over to the east. We operate on two properties here, one Kunyuma, which is 900 hectares, and the other called Arathusa, which is 600 hectares. We're going to go east across there towards Arathusa to see if we can't maybe see if the wild dogs have come across. A lovely sighting of them the other day, and I'd really like to see them again. That's a general plan, but plans change here faster than the seasons and faster than the leaves fall to the ground, because we just never can predict what's going on. Right, you're welcome. Here we go. Just an update on our lion situation. Scott has gone off to the east of this reserve, hoping to find tracks of lions perhaps crossing onto Kunyuma. We had the Styx pride to the south yesterday, and the Umkahuma pride we haven't heard of for the last few days. They're the pride that we see the most, and they were last seen heading into the Kruger Park just to the east of us. Now, just in case you're perhaps unfamiliar with the lay of the land, we sit on various pieces of private land here in the western sector of what is the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, but there are no fences between us and the Kruger and the Mozambican section and the Zimbabwean section. We're part of a Transfrontier National Park, and so animals are free to move. So when I say they've gone into Kruger, it just means they've crossed a boundary that humans can't cross, but the animals are of course free to do. And so it makes it a huge contiguous area of wonderful wildlife land. Okay. Adult hyenas went wandering off through there, and as soon as they left, their babies disappeared into the den. So they're still not quite old enough. There's another one that was born in December. There was another one born in December, and it's starting to move with the rest of the pack now, or the rest of the clan, but the little ones not so much. It's about 11 degrees Celsius apparently. Feels a bit warmer than that, don't you think, Andrew?
Yeah, it's quite nice today.
And 54 degrees Fahrenheit if you happen to be living in the 17th century. Right, I'm just going to try and make contact with Scott. Scott, come in. He's got some tracks around here. Copy, thanks very much. I'm on Weaver's Nest, I'll check there. So Scott's got some leopard tracks, a male and a female, from the Twin Dams area, which is just down there. There's a waterhole there called Twin Dams, and they're heading sort of towards, one of them's heading towards this area. So we'll just keep an eye out on the road quite carefully. It's lovely to go out first and early in the morning because the road is just a storybook of what happened in the night. Sometimes not very much, but nobody's driven over here today yet. So anything that did cross, we should be able to see, provided I'm paying attention. We're going to check along here. Let me just get an update from Scott and ask if you'd like me to check around here for a bit longer. Scott, is there anywhere specific you'd like me to have a look? No, I hear nothing from him. I think he's probably off the vehicle tracking. A very important part of what we do is following tracks, often on foot. It's just a bit easier to see what's going on when you're on foot as opposed to in the vehicle. And a leopard, of course, is not a very heavy animal, so it doesn't leave particularly obvious tracks. About 30 to 40 kilograms for female out here, and up. Ooh, look at that, Andrew. That's the sun. Can you see that? Shall I go forward a bit?
Just a little bit back, I think.
A little bit back. There you can see the great African sun coming up. I'm just going to stop here while we look at the sun and see if we can't hear anything. Our ears are extremely important parts of what we need to find animals out here. So we got a glorious picture of the sun going down yesterday over the Drakensberg. Wonderful to see it coming up again, as it has done for the last umpteen million years. Always a reliable sighting. All right, well, as you can see, the burning ball of hydrogen with its astonishing array of nuclear fusion events going on, creating that blazing ball of heat that gives us the life that or the heat that we need to live. We're going to pop across to Scott, and he'll give you an update of what his plans are for the morning and where those tracks are going, and I will see you a little bit later as the dawn breaks.
Well, good morning everyone, and welcome on board with myself, Scott. I am Gendre's chauffeur this morning, so he's on camera with me, and so far we've got off to a good start. We found some tracks of leopard. It looks like a male and a female close to Twin Dams. We checked our southern boundary because we are quite close to it to make sure they didn't cross out of there. Their tracks have been moving both north and south, up and down, and I just wanted to make sure we could work out where the males come from, and we've established that he has been heading north and east over our southern boundary into Juma, so that's good news. And hopefully, I'm guessing we're going to find their tracks just up ahead of us in this riverbed. They were just on our left-hand side when we found them. So good prospects. And happy to hear James was in a vantage point to share the sunset with you. The sunrise. We have not seen any of that in our low-lying riverbed. Where have these leopard gone from here? I really was expecting their tracks to pop down into this riverbed, which they still may. But no immediate sign. What is this up ahead? No. So, no luck. The tricky thing at the moment that we're facing is that the time we're heading out in the morning, it's still quite dark, so to see tracks is difficult for the first few moments. So I may have missed some of the tracks on our way into the dam. Yeah, James, if you wouldn't mind checking elephant's carcass. I'm just trying to work out where these tracks have gone. They haven't gone south and they haven't dropped into the Mulwati. And like I said, the tracks that I did have were on the eastern side of the dam, close to those jackalberries. So we approached from this direction, found our tracks behind us, and James is moving into the area to give us a hand. But in the meantime, what we can do is stop and watch these very pretty little birds gathering their breakfast. Let me rephrase that. They're not little, they're quite large, I guess, the size of an average chicken. And they are often called the bush chickens, but they are better known as the helmeted guinea fowl. Very pretty birds, as I said. They've got incredible feathers, as well as that crazy blue head. Well, for those of you who were watching the sunrise safari yesterday, you would have seen me chest deep in Twin Dams, which is where we are currently situated, trying my best to catch a catfish. Some of you don't believe me that I did catch one, but I let it slip away. But there is evidence, and we will show it to you at some stage. Mary's asking if I've managed to get all the mud off me, and yes, I did eventually. And I know what James was talking about after his episode. The mud starts drying up and pulling tight on your skin and your hairs, almost like a treatment from some kind of a health spa. But I did manage to get all of the mud off after spending some time in the shower, and I also very happily can say to X-Ranga that my phone is still working, miraculously. So I got away luckily, as I thought my phone was a goner. But for now it's still working. I find it incredible how birds like this can feed on such tiny little seeds. and get enough nutrition from them, especially at this time of the year when there doesn't appear to be too much around, but you'll notice how they scratch around and get little seeds as well as insects. They are omnivorous. And the great thing about being here stationary, it allows us to listen to the sounds around us, as well as watch these little birds. James is coming into the area to give us a hand. Well, it's interesting how different wilderness destinations you will find because we're told that at Pete's Pond they are called fleas because there are so many of them, and that's an update we've got from Savannah. And we certainly don't have the same problem here. Copy that, James. Thanks. Okay. Just want to drive around onto the western side of the dam now. We need to try and establish where these leopard have headed. Which is easier said than done. So just to keep everyone updated, I think there are tracks of both a male and a female leopard in this area. And Jim would like to know, how do we distinguish between the tracks of the different animals and even, I guess, male and female? It's all size, Jim. Lions' tracks are far bigger than leopards' tracks, but both very similar looking in terms of their shape. But size is a dead giveaway. A lioness's track is considerably larger than a big male leopard. So that helps us to determine and distinguish between who's responsible for laying down the different tracks on the pathways. Where on earth have these animals gone? But it does take a bit of time to get used to things and be confident in what you're saying. There are points where you'll see, for example, a young male leopard's tracks, and that will be very difficult to distinguish from a female. You also get, just like humans, some people with big feet and some people with small feet, and it's no different with the animals. There's a go-away bird having a little shouting contest, but it doesn't sound very intense. But we will keep that in mind, because maybe it can see the leopard. Can't be sure of it. If it was monkey's alarm calling, we would rush into the area, but a go-away bird could just be communicating with other go-away birds. It is early in the morning when birds like to call. Wonderful sunrise coming up there. I know you've seen it already, but when it's looking this good, you guess you will not mind having another look at it, and it's going to certainly help us with the tracking of these animals. As I mentioned earlier, in low light it can be very difficult to actually see the tracks on the ground, so I may have missed them coming up this road even though I've driven it already. off here quickly. There's a prominent game trail that heads off to the left where I have seen leopard move in the past. Well, through the process of elimination, we have established that the leopard have not appeared to head in this direction, which is beginning to make me a little bit, not concerned, but I'm wondering where they have gone. We've checked quite a few areas now, and I fear that I may have missed their track somewhere. James, I'm still trying to establish where they go from the down itself. Okay, Kabi, you're more than welcome to go elsewhere if you're feeling lucky. Because, yeah, like I said, I can't even work out where they've gone. Okay, well, we are going to send you back to James now while I take a closer look and try and establish what exactly these leopard have done. We will see you all a little bit later.
Hello everybody, welcome to from the helmeted guinea fowl you come across to the crested francolin, a small ground-dwelling bird, as you can see, and they're one of the first heralds of the dawn. Ubiquitous bird that we often sort of chase out of the road and don't spend too much time with, but they really are very spectacular looking animals, and they've got such an iconic call. Everybody associates the call of the African fish eagle with Africa, and for me, the sound of the crested francolin in the morning is one of my most iconic African sounds. So there he is. I'm not going to attempt to make his noise because it's not a particularly attractive sound. Well, it is in the context of the bush, but it's very unattractive when I try and make it. Right. We have been trying to help Scott find those leopard tracks, and as yet haven't come up with anything else. So we're going to continue around here just to keep searching, because there were male and female tracks. We're going to go down towards not Twin Dams, towards Treehouse Dam, which is just down there, see if anything's there, and if nothing comes up there, we'll probably reassess and go to Arathusa as originally planned. Of course, when you find tracks of two leopards, you generally have to change your plans and see if you can find them. But Jamie's also going into that area to help, so we don't necessarily need to hang around there too. And she's been remarkably successful finding leopards in the last few days. Quite interesting. Sorry, I just want to grab a piece of tree here. Andrew, this small piece of green tree over here, and plug myself. Last time I got off the car I didn't unplug myself and destroyed the earpiece. Eugene was not happy. So this, interestingly, is one of the last pieces of greenery that you can find around here. And what I find quite interesting, it's called an Albizia harvii, or common false thorn tree. They don't grow much bigger than that in this area because of the size of elephants. Elephants like to eat the bark, and I think also the roots. But they seem to maintain their leaves, and I suspect that's because they don't taste very good. So I'm just going to give it a taste. As I suspected. They've got quite a lot of tannin in the leaves, I think. I'm just going to give this one to Andrew because he gets jealous if I don't feed him some stuff. There you are.
Thank you, sir.
Just have a quick taste of it and tell me what you taste.
Tannins.
It's tanniny.
Tanniny.
So, I've been banging on about this for the last few days, but what's important to understand is that it's called a false thorn because it looks like an acacia, looks like it doesn't have thorns, but, well, it doesn't have thorns, but it needs other forms of defense. Otherwise, it would just be eaten. And that tannin is its chemical form of defense. And there are lots of plants out here that have chemical forms of defense, especially if they happen to be almost evergreen. The rest of the albizias are not evergreen. I think it's probably what we call semi-deciduous, which means that it will sort of eventually lose its leaves, but not necessarily as seasonally as some of the other plants. Remember, because the temperature very seldom gets particularly cold here, if you've got a root system that can tap into enough water, there's no reason necessarily for you to go dormant during the winter, like trees up in the northern hemisphere where there's snow and it's very and not enough light. So trees like this, if they can maintain their leaves, especially in winter, there's a lot less competition for sun and there's plenty of warmth. So it's not a bad strategy to be an evergreen here in the low veld of South Africa. Right, on we go. Albizia harvii, the common false thorn. Andrew, I'll be testing you on that when we return.
Alrighty.
Okay, so interesting, just to confirm, Lynn, on Twitter, you want to know what tracks we're looking at. We're not looking for Shadow and Sindile. We're looking at the moment probably for, I'm guessing from the tracks and the position of them, for Mvula and for Karula. Now, it's not to say that they were necessarily together, but they certainly came to drink at twin dams, either together or at different times of the night. So they're around this particular area, and that's pretty normal. They're both within their core territories. And for those of you who perhaps don't know, Karula is an 11-year-old leopardess, the great queen of the Djuma, and one of our viewers' favorite leopards. And Mvula is a large male in the area who has sired some of her cubs over the years, and he's got an injured eye and we haven't seen him for a while, and we thought maybe perhaps he was on his way out because we hadn't seen him for so long, but his tracks over the last 2 or 3 days have been all over Djuma, so with any luck we'll be able to find him sometime soon. He's my favorite. Listening to the radio. No, nothing going on there. And amazing how the temperature changes when you go up onto the crests here. Oh, there's a hyena. Just trotting through the bush. And you know, we saw at the den this morning, very early on, I think it was this female. She looks pregnant, and so, I mean, there could be 4 mothers fairly soon. She's going back towards the den. It might be worth, we're quite close by, it might be worth just doing a turn by there. What do you think, Andrew?
I think not a bad idea.
Alright, I think we're just going to do a quick turn by the den. We're not far from it. She seems to be heading to it, and it'd be quite nice to see. I haven't seen the new cub. He's still completely black. Only probably about, maybe by now, say a month to 6 weeks old. Pretty close by. Lots and lots of hyena tracks here, and the youngsters, you know, they're starting to move further and further from the den and up and down this road. A lovely comment from Guinea, who says that she spends so much time watching us that she finds herself driving around rural Kentucky looking in trees for leopards. Well, Jenny, if you do find one, I'd be fascinated to know. I think it's unlikely, as you say. Right. There doesn't seem to be anyone here now. We'll sit here very briefly, say for a few minutes. Just there, she's coming. She's coming through there. She's very interesting. You see her there, Andrew? She's coming around the back. Trying to decide where to stop. There she is. I'll just move a little bit forward. She might just walk straight past. Here she comes. They really are such spectacular animals, these, so seemingly intelligent, complex social structure, resourceful. And I think they're really beautiful too. So let's just have a look at her ears. She's got fairly mangled ears. Yeah, she looks like she's got pierced ears, which makes her, as far as I remember, the mother of the slightly older cub. So for those of you who perhaps don't know, we've got 3 litters going on here. One of 2, I think they're 2 males. One, just listening. One of 2 males, one very small one who we think belongs to the matriarch of the clan, probably a female. There's a little one coming out now. And that little one is not, as far as we can tell, related to this female, unless I'm mistaken. Yes, I've misidentified this one. No, that's definitely a male. Now, what's interesting here is that the mother of these 2 is subordinate to this female. And so the cubs, oh look, there are 3 of them. So the older cub is here. Unless I've got it slightly wrong. She's called them. So you can see clearly the two distinct ages there. One of them born in December, and the other two born a little bit after that. This is interesting. I think we should follow them. What the hyenas don't do is bring meat back to the den like wild dogs do. So she might have found something. She was making a low rumbling sound, which I don't think you'd have picked up on the camera. It was kind of... I'm going to nip out onto the road where we first saw her. I think they're going to pop out there. And I think she might be... Ooh, hold on. What's out there, Andrew? I think she might be taking them somewhere to eat. So, let's just recap. Unlike wild dogs, who will bring food back to the den and regurgitate it for the cubs, which is pretty unpleasant. The hyenas don't do that. They'll come back, they suckle for a lot longer, and then as soon as they can move like these ones can now, they'll be taken across to something to eat, to potential food. It's so wonderful having seen them from so young because they're so confiding. They're so completely used to the vehicles. And now they should be coming through here. Andrew, any sight of them?
Not yet.
This is where we had the female. First decided to go back to the den. Stand by here for a second. Let's see if we don't get sight of them. Hyenas it's quite odd, you know, unlike with a leopard or a lion. If you follow a leopard or lion through thick bush and you crash over trees behind them, if they're used to the vehicles, they don't normally mind. If you do that behind a hyena, they'll run. That's why I didn't follow them through the bush. I'm hoping they will pop out here. This is roundabout where we saw the female disappear into the bush. They're now doing what animals do so well there. And that is confound any predictions made by man. Keeping an eye out behind us as well. Oh, come now. Don't let me down, hyenas. A little bit forward, Andrew. Let's see if we can't see them. There's a game trail that they were following. I'm sure you saw that. They were following a path. And those paths are worn by the hyenas themselves, but also by buffalo going to and from water, rhino going to and from water, especially during the wet season, the dry season. Here's the path they were on. It's there they are. Is that not there? No, it's not. They've been up and down this path before, you know. So you can see that path heading off into the bush, and it leads directly to the den, and there are lots of tracks on it. And when it crosses the road here, there are lots more tracks. Anyway, I don't think we're going to hang around for too long waiting for them. No sight of them, Andrew.
Very strange.
It's very odd. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to head towards, there's a waterhole not too far from here. It's over the other side of this little ridge. So we'll head across to that and see if they don't pop out there, or maybe there'll be something else having an early morning drink. A breakfast smoothie of algae and catfish done. Sounds delicious. Breakfast smoothie of algae, catfish done, buffalo done, and a little bit of water. And a question from Anna Marie, or comment that she'd like to hear them calling. Anna Marie, I also love to hear them calling. They have a really wonderful way of calling. Kind of laughing cackle or a whoop. That's my favorite one, when they do that at night. That sort of territorial whoop that they make. Whoop! During the night time, and it echoes through the leaves. It's an astounding kind of sound. You know, for humans, if we make a noise in the bush, it stops immediately. It doesn't echo. But the lions and the leopards and the hyenas have a way of making sound that really does echo through and reverberate through the bush. And I'm not sure of the physical properties of the sound waves or how they do it, but it is amazing, especially at night. Right, and while we go and check on the breakfast smoothie situation at Treehouse Waterhole, we're going to go across to Scott, who I believe has a Bateleur. Marvelous bird. We'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. And from one carrion eater to another. Happy to hear that James managed to find you the hyena, and you did get a good view of them. We have established which direction this leopard was heading in, so we've looped onto Leadwood Road. He has been mobile northeast, and was hoping to find his tracks popping out somewhere where we are here, but have yet to, so he could still be in the block. Or we may simply have just lost his tracks. Such pretty birds, the Bateleurs. Bright red beak and red feet. And they must have a nest here, because we often see 2 or 3 of them in this area off Leadwood Road. I can't seem to see where any of the others are at the moment. Franklin calling now. And it's during these little moments of silence, or at least while the vehicle is silent, that we always hope to hear some useful clues from around us. But nothing seems to be panicking, which would tend to happen if animals do see leopard. It's a tricky one, because even though the leopard could be here somewhere, there may not be the squirrel in the right place to set off the alarm call for it. So it's not to say that it's not here, but we can kind of assume that there's not too much going on now, at least in the way of alarm calls. So let's continue. Let's see if we don't have any further luck. Come on, leopard. The area that he headed into was, it's an incredibly thick area. So thick that even if you were to find the animal on foot, there's a strong chance you wouldn't be able to get a vehicle in there. And there are quite a few of those areas where are simply inaccessible to us. I walked through that whole area yesterday afternoon. There were also tracks in this area yesterday afternoon of both a male and a female. and it's really spooky when you are walking through that thick vegetation. It was also quite windy yesterday afternoon, and walking in windy conditions, you've got to be on high alert because there is a strong chance that you could startle animals. They may not hear you coming because there's so much ambient noise from the wind. And it's when you startle animals that you can expect them to react. Possibly negatively to us because they have got a fright. They're not aware that we're coming, as they usually are when the weather conditions are quieter. Go again, didn't copy anything. Go again. I did not copy anything. Just got a question through from Mike in Florida, and he's asking, are there any kind of burrs or plants that will stick onto our clothes when we're walking around in the bush? And there most certainly are, Mike, but it's mainly during the summer months that is a problem. During the winter there aren't as many that stick to our clothes, so it's not as bad during the winter months, but there are the parasites that jump on board. Thankfully, for some reason, the parasites don't like the taste of meat too much, and I guess it kind of depends on the individual. Stefan is often under heavy attack from the parasites, and when I'm walking with him, there's sometimes none on me and he's covered. But there are a number of different burrs that will get stuck onto us, so seeds that will have sticky Velcro-like mechanisms that latch onto us, so that we can deposit them elsewhere. There's also a few alien species, blackjacks, that will also cover your body. Even in the drier months, they can cause trouble. What have you spotted, Jean-Andre? Jean-Andre spotted a Steenbok. Let me just reverse a bit. I spotted some tracks in the ground, but they're just hyena tracks for now. Let's see if we can get you a vision of this little Steenbok there. Seems relaxed, which is good. A little female. Could well be a male nearby. They usually stay quite close to one another. They do form lifelong bonds, the Steenbok. And I can hear Jamie approaching. She's moved into this area to lend us a hand with the tracks. And it really is good fun when we are not presenting, heading out on these tracking teams. It gives you some time to really immerse yourself in the bush with no other distractions, and getting off on the trail of these animals, looking for them, can be great fun. Steenbok's looking at Jamie approaching. Okay. Morning, Jamie.
Morning.
So we haven't had any luck yet, but maybe you will find something that we didn't manage to find. Well, a lot of you may be wondering which leopard I think this is that we are following. Tricky to say. Maggie, it could be Quarantine or Kunyuma. The tracks look fairly small, at least the tracks that I did see. Small for a male. But it is a tricky business, this predicting which animals you think it could be. But I think it is definitely a male. Either Mvula or one of the boys, Kunyuma or Quarantine, who we haven't seen for months. It would be great to see one of them again. But not entirely sure. It's difficult to say. The tracks came from the south of us, and I know Mvula does spend time there, but he's generally more to the north of us. The two boys, Kunyuma and Quarantine, are or could very well be in that area. They have been further south and east of us. I'd be happy to see any of them, but I'm told James would like to see Mvula because it's his favorite leopard. And it would really be good to see him. We haven't seen him for quite some time now. But like I say, the two boys, Kunyuma and Quarantine, also haven't been seen for a while, so it'd be nice to get an idea of how they're keeping. Check Mamba Road now. It's again another tricky road regarding tracks because a lot of the substrate is quite hard. I mentioned Stefan earlier. For those of you who don't know Stefan, he is part of our team and has done a number of drives as well as quite a few walks when we were doing the walking safaris, and we do plan on getting those walking safaris back up and running, where he will be heavily involved, and he will also be helping with some of the drives, but he's got a management role now, managing the whole team and all of the logistics of what's going on, future projects. So he's doing a lot of admin work, you could say, at the moment, but will be doing the occasional drive from time to time. But basically there are the four presenters now, James, Jamie, Brent and myself, who should be able to provide us with a full complement at any given stage, and Stefan's there to step in when need be, when anybody's not around. So not to worry, Mister, you will be seeing him out in the bush again, and he is certainly great to have out here. He's got lots of experience, and for all of you just brings a new dynamic to the show. Well, I'm going to stop here and listen for a while, and hopefully we'll get some clues from doing that. We're going to send you across to James, who has found you an animal to look at.
Hello, hello, and welcome back to the noble Jiga with an equally noble animal, Giraffa camelolepardus, vigorously chewing. You know, I saw this bull the other day, and he was chewing with exactly the same level of vigor. I've never seen a giraffe chew like this. He is obviously an extremely hungry giraffe. And I suspect because he's old, look how gnarled his face is. He's a magnificent old bull, but you can see that he's not a youngster, And I wonder if that chewing hasn't got to do with the fact that his teeth are now starting to wear out. But you can see the food in his cheek pouches. Watch him swallow. Now watch it come back up again. Watch, 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 watch. Watch his throat. There it comes. There it comes. Lovely way to eat your breakfast twice. And you can tell, Andrew, if you can, I'm sorry to, while you're being picturesque about it, can you get back in on his head there?
Yes.
He's got what we call the median horn, and it's a particularly bad way of describing it, but basically if you look at his head there, on the far left of his head, front, and at the back behind his horns, you can see where the skull has calcified. Now that's completely typical on giraffe. Their skulls do calcify, and it's a very good way of aging them. You can see this is an old boy. He's got a very large calcification at the back and on the front and above his eye there, and you can see he's got very wrinkly skin around his nose. He's a magnificent old chap, this. You can also see that his normal horns are kind of gnarled. They also sort of calcify in various places, and they're not quite as smooth as they once were when he was a young giraffe strolling the plains in search of ladies. That's not to say that he won't have any more ladies. So I think his fighting days are probably, his best fighting days are probably beyond him. Little oxpecker on his neck, and you can also see he's not in the best condition in the world. His hips are sticking out a bit. I'm just going to sneak very slightly. No, I'm not. There's a bit of a bush in the way, but his hips are sticking out. So he's quite old. He's lived a good life, this fellow. And that's no better indication of the winter colors than the picture you've got there now. Which can, I suppose, to some people seem quite harsh, especially if you're perhaps from Europe or North America, the wetter parts of the world, where you're just not used to seeing quite such a... It looks harsh, but it doesn't feel harsh. You know, you come here and you start to see tremendous subtlety in the colors, subtlety in the sort of light gold of the grass, and the gentle browns of the winter leaves, and of course the gentleness is in the climate where it really just doesn't get that harsh in the winter time. What are we looking at, Andrew?
I thought his leg was sore, but I can't see any of the bushes in the way.
It did look like he was having a bit of a limp.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm just going to sneak a little bit forward and we'll see if we can't see if there's anything wrong with his leggy. Yeah, you'll get a better picture here. Giraffe do tend to have what look like fairly swollen ankles. Those look especially swollen. Especially the one on the left there, you see that? It's almost like the muscle from the ankle has slipped down in some way. I'm not sure if that's actually possible. In fact, it is possible. If the tendons detach themselves, you can have a swelling like that. Maybe he's hurt himself. Such a beautiful color. Very nice questions from Karen and Mavis. Mavis, firstly, you wanted to know Sorry, I'm just watching him carefully here. Mavis, you wanted to know, do giraffes manage to sort of live to die of old age? Mavis, you know, very little out here lives to die of old age. In fact, almost nothing. Normally, when they get old, when animals get old, they get weaker, just like we do as human beings, and then they tend to get picked off by predators. Now, in giraffe's case, that'll be hyenas or lions, probably lions. But you know, I mean, for example, he's very close to that hyena den that we were at. And so hyenas will pick up on any weakness. I don't think he is limping, Andrew. I think he's just got very odd-shaped legs that are bearing the testament to a life well lived. So Mavis, very unlikely that any animal will live out here to die of old age. Then Karen, you want to know if he's old enough to, if he's too old to breed. Karen, I would say probably not. You know, very, very few animals, again, live out here beyond breeding age. And I've had this discussion a few times, and I really enjoy it. The question of living beyond breeding age seems to have a lot to do with animals that have or need to pass knowledge on to youngsters. Animals that don't have that, who either teach their youngsters very early, or who or don't have anything to do with child rearing, tend not to live beyond breeding age because there's no evolutionary pressure to do so. Elephants are a notable exception. The other very notable exception is human beings, and a couple of the other primates as well, who live beyond breeding age because the importance of elders in the community or the herd structure is such that it's necessary for them to live beyond a certain breeding age. Giraffe do not fall into that category. So they don't tend to have a herd structure that requires a huge amount of knowledge to be passed on. And tends to be that the more sort of, I don't want to say intelligent, I'm going to say the animals with the more sophisticated social structures perhaps, they tend to have much, live for longer and live beyond breeding age for much longer. So human beings are the most obvious example of that. And that's even before, you know, the advent of modern medicine. We've always lived longer than breeding age, both men, well, men less so than women, but women especially. Men definitely less so. Right, that was the magnificent giraffe. We're sort of heading up towards where we saw the hyenas last, not holding out a great amount of hope that we'll see them again, but we're going to drive around that area and then probably head up a little bit north and west and see if we can't pick up on the tracks of Shadow and Sindile, which Jamie found yesterday and had a magnificent sighting with you. And I'm rather hoping they have come back towards Juma. So, Rainer, I didn't say how old I thought he was. I normally studiously try and steer away from those sorts of estimates. Not that anyone will ever be able to prove me wrong, but giraffes normally live to about 25, we think, out here. And I would say he must be pushing, he's between 20 and 25 years old. He's pretty old. But I'm more than happy to take guesses from anyone else. How old does everyone else think he was? Andrew, how old do you think he was?
32.
That's absolute nonsense. You're talking a foul and contemptible untruth.
Who can prove me wrong?
No one. That's the problem. Don't pay any attention to Andrew, everyone. I think he's on a sugar high after his 7th granola bar this morning. So Dave in Toronto has pointed out that we can tell the sex of a giraffe from the horns. You can, absolutely. The horns, or ossicones as they're called, do have a different shape. On a female they tend to be hourglass shaped, which is rather appropriate, and the hairy on top, where the males tend to be fatter and thicker with no hair on top. But you know, once you get used to seeing giraffe, you really don't need that in order to see the difference. The bulls are much bigger. They've got a lot. They've just got a lot more muscle definition. The female giraffe tend to be beautifully elegant, more so than the males, which is a bit like us humans, I suppose. And yeah, so there are lots of different ways to tell the difference between male and female. But once you've seen a few of them, yeah, you couldn't really make a mistake unless they're youngsters. But Dave, you're absolutely correct. Differences in the horns, hair, and also the shape. The males have much fatter sort of horns, and the females tend to be sort of hourglass shaped. It is a duiker. They always do that. There's a little duiker in the bush there, lurking, thought we hadn't seen him, and as soon as he realized we had, he dove through the bush. And they're called duiker. That's where the name comes from, the Afrikaans duiker, meaning diver, and that's why they're called that, because they dive through the bush. Oh, there's an African hawk eagle. Got it.
No, it was just too quick for me.
Extremely unpleasant of that bird. It's going to land it. It's a beautiful eagle, African hawk eagle, black on the back, white on the front. Probably, there are normally two of them. And they go in search of guinea fowl and francolins. And while one circles up high, attracting the attention, and the guinea fowl and the francolin look up like this, one of them will come in from behind and smack it and take it off up into a tree, and then they'll share it together. So they hunt in pairs, quite ferocious hunters of guinea fowl and francolin. Very clever strategy, that. It's going to be a hot day today. You can see how the light is already kind of washed out. It was very golden in the morning, but it's already gone very pale, very kind of washed out and white. And I think that's because there's a lot of dust in the air from the wind yesterday. And I'm looking out towards the Drakensberg now, and I can't see the mountains at all. So this kind of hazy atmosphere that you can see around us really does wash the light out. Not excellent for photography at the moment. What say you, Andrew? Don't speak nonsense this time.
That's true what you said.
Thank you, that is correct. As far as you're concerned, everything I say is true. There's another giraffe down there, and from this distance I'd say it's a female. Ex-Ranger, you've put down Andrew's nonsense talking to the leaf that he ate earlier. I would agree with you, but for the fact that I ate it too. There's another giraffe here. Do you see it, Andrew?
No, I don't actually.
No, I don't see it anymore. But I did. I think it's a cow. It'd be nice to just compare it with the other one if it hasn't disappeared into the bush. It's quite a long way away. You can see its tracks here.
Oh, there it is.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Where it is?
Just about 3 o'clock.
Ah, yes. Now it's another bull. We'll just have a quick look at this one, and you can see, as Dave pointed out, If you just get in tight on the head if you can, Andrew, as it disappears. Can you see anything there?
A little bit.
There, you can just see the white tips of the horns there. That's a lovely example of what Dave was talking about there. You can see that there's no hair on the top of the horns. Brilliant. So that's exactly what you'd look for. If you've got a long distance view of a giraffe like that, you can tell if it's male or female immediately from those horns. Right, I don't want to go this way, I want to turn around. So just to keep you updated, Scott and Jamie are still hot on the trail of a leopard or two, but they are in a particularly difficult area. It's the area I was driving around yesterday with Scott, and it's not an easy area for tracking because there are not that many roads around the place. So they are doing a sterling job, but it's not an easy one. My eyes deceive me. Hang on a second. I think they do deceive me. Sorry everybody, I saw a discoloration in the top of a tree. No, my eyes have totally deceived me. I thought maybe it was the shape of a leopard draped in the boughs of a marula tree, but it is not. Can you see what I'm looking at? Just keep panning where you were panning, to the right. There, straight in the middle there. No, back to the right. There, that bit there, that kind of that discoloration on the marula tree.
Ah, yes.
Yes, doesn't really look like a leopard when you when you look at it like that. So that's from an elephant that has debarked the tree. Thank you for that, Nikki. So although it's quite hazy and the light is a bit washed out, there's a really nice atmosphere around the morning. I think probably because it's not freezing cold. Nice question here from Purple Rain. Purple Rain, you want to know if giraffes sleep standing up. Lots of hyena tracks here, but old ones. Purple Rain, giraffe can sleep standing up. They can actually sometimes rest their heads on a tree or in the fork of a tree, but they do sleep lying down as well. But what they do, remember that a giraffe has a massive heart in order to pump enough blood up into the brain. And so what they tend to do, sorry, I'm just checking for tracks here. No, those are all hyenas. What they tend to do is they lie down, and they don't put their heads down. So their heads stick up, they just fold their legs up underneath them, and they sleep on the ground with their heads up. They're extremely vulnerable when they lie down like that. They're slow to get up, much slower than, say, a wildebeest or an impala. And so if a lion, it's Christmas when a lion comes across a giraffe that happens to be lying down like that. They're very easy to catch. Likewise when they're drinking, because they have to put their heads down and almost do the splits. It's the most, they become extremely vulnerable. Most animals can sleep pretty much standing up, or certainly doze standing up out here. It's one of the quickest ways to have a short life and make sure that you don't die of old age, is to lie down and have a snooze and not be aware of what's going on around you. lots of hyena activity on the road here from yesterday. We're just keeping our eyes open. Michelle in Gay Paris, a comment or a question, and you want to know basically why do we always see hyenas and leopards? Well, Michelle, I rather wish we did see more in the way of leopards, although this particular area is particularly good for seeing leopards. But Michelle, they are two of the most dominant predators here, the most dominant being the lion, then hyena, and then wild dog, and then leopard. And they're also very territorial, all of them. And so when you know an area well, it's generally relatively, I mean, I say relatively easy. It's not uncommon to find them within an area, so they don't often move away for too long. I hope that answers your question. If I'm not being clear, please send through another one and I'll happily address it. Andrew is just showing you some of the sort of washed out scenes of the bush there. I'm just going to stop here because you do get an impression of the mist, or not mist, it's kind of dust, I suppose, Andrew?
Yeah, it's like dusty.
You see how dusty it is there on the horizon? It almost looks like smoke, but there are no fires around at the moment. None that I can smell. There's a very dusty smell to the air. And that's not mist, everybody. That's dust from the very strong wind that we had last night, or yesterday. The night actually was very still. There's not a huge amount of in the way of bird song at the moment. There was a starling alarm calling back there. You can hear a robin. Otherwise, it's very silent out here in this kind of washed out light. Anyway, we are going to continue. We're going towards the area where Sindile and Shadow were found yesterday. We might be lucky. I think it might be time to switch hats, Andrew. Please tell me I have my other hat. Oh dear. Oh dear. I don't have my sun hat with me, Andrew. I can wear Gendre's very fashionable cap. There we go. Gendre's head is about 4 times the size of mine. And while I look like I'm about to catch a skateboard ride, I'm not. Gendre is a much more fashionable human being than I am. Lovely torchwood tree here. We'll just stop next to it and have a quick look up into the boughs of Balanites mogami, the torchwood. There's a bird in the top there. I'm just going to try and identify it. There. That's interesting. It's not a usual bird. Can you see him, Andrew? Used to be known as the yellow-throated sparrow, and is no longer called that. I think it's called a... No, I can never remember this word. It's a ridiculous word. There he is. Well done. You got him. Big eye stripe there that you can see. Well, maybe you can. You can just see it there. They're not very common. I mean, they're not particularly impressive, but they're not very common. Petronia. The yellow-throated Petronia. Right. Well, as we sit here and listen to the lovely call of the yellow-throated Petronia, we'll move on eventually to go and see if we can't find some evidence of Sindile or shadow. And we're going to go across to Scott. He'll give you a bit of an update. Look at that beautiful tree. He's sitting at a waterhole at the moment, and he'll give you an update on the tracks that he's been studiously trying to follow the whole morning. And I'll see you in a little while.
Welcome back, everyone, and we have come to the Buffelshoek waterhole because tracks of this male leopard were last seen heading in this direction from Central Road. It could well be the same male we were tracking earlier this morning, and Jamie's off on foot on those last tracks. I'm sure yellow-throated Petronia might be a new bird for a lot of you to add to the list, so well done to James for finding that in the beautiful torchwood tree. There was nothing here when we arrived, and as we drove through the dip on the southern side of the dam wall, we arrived here and all the impala had just arrived. It was a stroke of fortune, and glad we are on this side because the sunlight is perfect. And I'm sure Jandre is providing you with some wonderful views of these impala who are nervously drinking. There thankfully are so many eyes and ears that they can feel safer than most other species who come to drink. But there's still a certain tension about them. And I wonder how far this leopard is from here. The last tracks we had were following the riverbed that runs up to this dam or away from this dam, and he may not be far away. There's no sign of any of his tracks popping out here, so he could still be en route to this waterhole, or he could have stopped along the way. He may have made a kill, he may just be taking a sleep. But at least we are on the trail. Interestingly, last night we actually heard male impala ratting, and we drove out to go and investigate, and not sure why they would have been so worked up so late after the ratting season. It could have something to do with the moon that is becoming brighter and brighter, and it is the full moon in the months of May that will often trigger the ratting season, so maybe they were reminiscing due to the moon and letting off their bizarre gurgling, burping roar. Some Franklin calling, some oxpeckers also calling. Just got an email through from Daniel, and he's interested to know, are there many fish in Africa? And yes, there certainly are, Daniel. There's a great diversity of both freshwater and saltwater fish. Honestly, here we only have the freshwater, and in this specific waterhole, I'm almost certain there'll be catfish, or barbel, as well as tilapia. Those are the two main fish species that we get in this area. But in the Sand River and the Sabi River, which flows through this reserve not far from here, we also get tiger fish. Not very big ones, but they are still tiger fish, as well as various different types of labios, or scalies as we call them, even eels in the rivers. So there's a healthy fish population in the Sabi Sands as well as Africa as a whole. Well, they really are making the most of this opportunity to drink. The waterholes are drying up quite rapidly, as some of you will know, especially Twin Dams is our probably lowest out of the 4 waterholes we have here at Juma. Well, Impala, I think you've timed your drink very well, because there should be a leopard popping out here in the next 5 or 10 minutes, according to my predictions. So best you move on unless you want to be chased around by that spotted cat. I'm sure you're seeing some beautiful reflections on the water. At some stages, I don't have a monitor, so I'm not sure exactly what you're seeing, but with a scene as pretty as this, I have no doubt that Jean-Andre is taking you on a wonderful tour of the surroundings here at Buffelshoek. Beautiful big ram that you can see at the moment. You'll notice that a few of them are still looking quite fluffy because of the cold weather. They'll extend their hairs to create a thick blanketing effect, and as it heats up they will flatten them against their body, so there's less insulation. They can look like little fuzz balls in the cold mornings. So a lot of these ladies will be coming on about 2 months of their pregnancy. They should be giving birth in November. Somewhere in November will be in all likelihood when we start seeing them give birth, and it's going to be great to watch them develop and grow over the next few months. as these waterholes do dry up, it's making for easy meals for a lot of the fish-eating animals, and it's mainly the birds that will feed on them. And Joyce is interested to know if there's any other animals other than the fish-hunting birds that will feed on the fish, and there certainly are, Joyce. Leopards will, lions will. Not that I've seen, actually, though, but I wouldn't be surprised to see lions scooping out catfish from the drying waterholes. Hyena would also opportunistically feed on them. But leopards most certainly will scoop out catfish from dying puddles. But they're not a fan of getting wet, the leopard. So it would have to be a very dry pond where it's easy to scoop them out, but it certainly has happened in the past, and imagine if we get to see that happening. It would be absolutely awesome. It's something that I've never actually seen other than on video footage and on stories from other guides. But if it's going to happen this year, it's going to be at Twin Dams. That's my prediction. It's going to be the first waterhole to dry up, if any do. And I don't think it will make it till the first rains in October. And that's exactly where we had some leopard tracks this morning. Well, the impala are a very common antelope of this area, so you may have seen them quite a lot. But one animal that we do not get here is the Thompson's gazelle. And Cindy is interested to know the differences between the Thompson's gazelle and the impala. So the easiest way for me to do that is for me to get out my little book and show you some pictures. They are a lot smaller than the impala, and we don't get them in southern Africa. We only find them up in East Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania, and that's where I have seen them. They are quite different in coloration. You'll notice they've got a very white stomach, a black stripe along their torso. Their horns, I guess, are fairly similar. But the difference is that both the males and the females will have horns with the Thompson's gazelle, whereas with the impala, it's just the males who have the horns, and they're a lot smaller. They're probably about half the weight of an impala, so they're considerably smaller. And you're going to have to wait for us to go up and film in East Africa to see these, sadly, Cindy, but who knows, that could happen. And wouldn't that be fun, going and finding you not only the Thompson's gazelle but also the Grant's gazelle, which is the bigger cousin of the Grant's gazelle. They look quite similar, the Grant's and the Thompson, but this is another gazelle that we will see if we ever do make it up to Kenya and Tanzania. It's probably twice the size, though, of the Thompson's gazelle, similar size to the impala. Good. Well, the impala have gone. The leopard has not arrived as it was supposed to. So we shall continue and check in Yala Road in Yala Road North, which is where he may have popped up. Tina's just mentioned, I said that the leopards here don't like getting their feet wet, but Tina pointed out that the leopards in South America don't mind swimming at all, and that's true. They're not true leopards, though. Those are jaguars. They are part of the same family, the Panthera family, but you will get jaguars in South America who are very, very good swimmers. And I've seen some incredible footage of a jaguar swimming across a river and stalking up onto a sandbank and catching a caiman crocodile, I think it was. It's some kind of a crocodile. Pulled it back into the water, swam off the little sandy island back to the main bank where it would have consumed that crocodile. So, very, very different. Even though they are similar looking, the jaguars are far bigger than leopards, and their rosettes are much larger. Another animal that may come unstuck as the waterholes dry up are the terrapins, and Kathleen is interested to know, what will they do? Well, I guess they'll try and move to a different water source, take a marathon journey in the hope of finding some water, or they'll just become statistics, I guess, like a lot of the fish. But they do move around, and they are capable of moving fairly large distances between water. It's surprising where you sometimes find them moving. I've once seen a mvula lying right at the base of this tree, and wouldn't it be nice if he was here this morning? It could well be him that we're tracking, just judging by the direction that the tracks are moving in. And I'm going to get on the radio shortly to Jamie to see if she's had any further luck following the trail in this block. The tracks were off to our right, but coming towards us in this little riverbed. Well, I have got some great news. James has found an animal that has been avoiding us over the last week or so. We haven't seen many of them, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to be happy to see exactly what it is. Enjoy. We will see you later.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Giga, and as Scott says, these elephants have been avoiding us, I think, for the last 3 days or so, having had such profound sightings of them. And we've just come to Arathusa, and here's a magnificent herd of elephants. It really is wonderful to see them again and spend some time watching them gracefully moving through the bush. It's quite a large herd. They're all around us. Lots to the front, a couple to the back, probably the young bulls to the back. And I've been trying to sort of identify the difference between the herds that we're seeing over the last little while, and I'm going to try and do that now. I'm not sure which one this is. There's one just behind us now. You can hear the drongos calling, attending the elephants as they do. Right, Andrew, I'm just going to sneak a little bit forward there. Probably get a nice view of them going past that termite mound. What's your head here?
All good.
They're moving very slowly in a specific direction, and we're quite close to the boundary with a reserve called Simbambili, where there's a nice water hole, and I suspect that's the general idea of where they're trying to go. So we are obviously a little bit backlit here, but I'm not going to bash around to the other side of them. So not ideal light, but just beautiful. Spend some time with the elephants again. Just try and see if you can hear them. Hear how incredibly quiet they are, and there are about 30 of them here, I think. Right, I think maybe we should try and go around the other side. Right, I'm going to go around the back of them and see if we can't just get the other side of the light. Once this one's walked past us, looks like a young bull. Very rounded head, you can see. Very rounded around the forehead. He would seem to be a young bull. I have made mistakes before. I once pointed out what I thought was a pregnant female to somebody, and it then proceeded to extend its whatnot, thereby showing that it wasn't in fact a pregnant female at all, but a very unpregnant bull. Right. We're going to go round the back now. See if we can't get a better view. So just bear with me. Don't want to make a big noise around the back of them, so we're just going to gently maneuver our way to the other side of the light so that we're not staring into the blinding sun. Because I tell you, if we carry on doing that for too long, this fellow Andrew will start complaining bitterly. Constantly wanting to take award-winning shots is our Andrew. Righty go. A big herd. Probably about 30 of them, I think. Come on, Jiga, don't give up on me now. Calcitrant old bat that Jiga is. There we go. Andrew, I'm going to stop there for now.
That'll do, that'll do.
That poor knobthorn is being absolutely macerated. Lisa, nice question. You want to know if elephants, you're talking about the infrasonic communication that they make, and is it in different tones? Lisa, as far as we understand, absolutely it is. Some of them are so low that we can't hear them at all. I've definitely seen that. you know, you see elephants suddenly stop and look in one direction, and we haven't heard anything. Then some of them are audible to us, so much higher pitched. I will attempt to make a call like an elephant now. They go, and that's the sort of what we can hear. How was that, Andrew?
Very good.
No, thank you very much. That's the correct answer. And so yes, absolutely, they make them at different tones, and I think they mean different things. And a lot of the communication work that has been done around elephants has looked at the different kinds of tones that they make, and I think there are up to 30 different tones that the cows make. The bulls don't make quite as many. The ladies tend to like to talk to each other a bit more than the bulls do, which is to be expected, because they of course live in herds, and the bulls don't tend to spend their whole lives in herds. Let's just go and have a quick look at that knobthorn there, Andrew. It's being destroyed. Mike in Florida, very nice question. You want to know how much an elephant can debark a tree before it dies. I assume by it you mean the tree. It depends on the tree, Mike. That knobthorn, the acacias are brilliant at at coppicing, and that means the growing from the base, from the rootstock. So while that tree will become a stick, I think, over the course of the wet season, it may well sprout from the base. A knobthorn, however, that is mature, so that is a knobthorn that elephant's eating now, but a mature one that is ring-barked. Remember, no tree that is ring-barked will survive for very long. By ring-barking a tree, what an animal does is that it stops the flow of nutrients from the roots up and from the leaves down, and that will result in the death of a tree. Now, quite often with a young knobthorn like that, you know, it will coppice from the roots, but a big tree will not. So a lot of knobthorns die when elephants ring bark them, and the problem with knobthorns is that the bark comes off in great big strips, and so it's quite easy for the elephants to ring bark them. Something like a marula tree, Mike, can tolerate a bit more because the bark comes off in little chips, not in strips, and it's much more difficult for an elephant to ring bark a marula tree than it is a knobthorn tree. So basically, I mean, as soon as you cut off the vascular tissue, Mike, they will die, and that can be big strips, or it can be, you know, if it's a concentric but thin ring, then they will die. But I've seen trees that have been debarked almost, I'd say, up to 80%, but there's a thin strip that is maintained between the sort of leafy crown and the roots, and the tree still manages to survive. So, a very roundabout answer, Mike, but it's not actually that easy to answer. Right, nice question. Let us carry on. Nice marula crest, this. So we're on the kind of top of the lowfold. Is this gently undulating granitic topography, and we're on a crest now, and the dominant tree here, all the tall ones you can see around here, are marula trees. The soil is sandy, and that's where the marula trees like to grow, and that's pretty clear. I mean, for this area, this is almost a clearing. I must just excuse my hat again. I do look a bit gangster, but if I don't wear it, my balding pate will burn in the sun. Very lovely area, this. Sorry, Andrew, I'm just going to nip around the front here so that we don't have to move too much again. If that's all right with you. have much choice. But I give them dry. Go. I think the general direction, you know, is not towards that dam in Simbandi. Look at this little chap coming close to us now. This is wonderful. Oh boy. Oh, it's so special. Hello. Shh. Young bull. Well, fella. Isn't that great? And he's just, you know, I don't know if you can see, you probably can't. He's pretending to eat. He keeps just sort of pretending to pick something up and then put it in his mouth, and then he looks back at us just to check that we're still there and what we're doing. He's a little bit suspicious, but he's enjoying this sort of investigation of us. Anyway, they're moving more to the east now, sort of towards Juma. So they might be going there for a drink. I don't recognize this herd necessarily. Mm. You can see the big cow in picture there. That big cow, I think, is the matriarch. And they were all gathered around her. And the youngster was walking towards us. She did make a low rumble, and they gathered around her. And now they're sort of turned from their northerly walk more towards the east now. There's a big waterhole just north of Juma just north of Juma in Buffelshoek, and that's the kind of general direction that they're heading. And the elephants will have to drink a lot when the vegetation is so dry like this. That one is eating a very large piece of Combritum apiculatum. Chewing off the bark. So all this eating must be exhausting for them. Hour after hour they have to break sticks, branches, and chew and eat and find new food. Some are much easier because they'll graze mainly. But winter, it must be very tiring. That one's just watching us too. He's eating, but he's also watching us. A question from Empire Road in Johannesburg from Jemps. Very fine name you have there, Jemps. You want to know if elephants are left or right tusked, like we might be left or right-handed. There is certainly some evidence to suggest that is the case. So you will find that some elephants have got shorter left or right tusks, And if you watch them carefully, they will use one tusk more than the other at times. But I don't think it's quite as defined as humans. And I certainly don't think it's as defined as, some people will talk about a master and a slave tusk, which I think is a particularly ridiculous way to describe it. What you do find, though, which I have discovered and read about in the last few days, is that they, tusks aside, what they tend to do is when they're picking up with their trunks, they have these circular muscles in their trunks that can turn either left or right. But apparently specific elephants will decide whether to turn will use those muscles and turn their trunks either predominantly right or predominantly left. And what that does is wear the skin out on one side of the trunk underneath. You don't see it necessarily, you need to look pretty closely, but it definitely does seem to, they do seem to use one side of the trunk more than they do the other. He's taking a bit of a snack with him. 2 snacks, in fact. Resting them on the tusks and wedging them there with his trunk. I think that might be a young cow, actually. Very square head. And youngsters always keep a little eye out on us. Sharon, one of our newer viewers, thank you for your question and thank you for taking the time out to ask us a question. You say sometimes elephants don't have tusks. Why is that? Well, Sharon, in the case of Indian elephants or Asian elephants, the females don't have tusks at all. In the case of African elephants, some are just born without tusks. Very few, I'd say probably about maybe 1% are born without tusks. Remember, the tusks are the incisor teeth, and they erupt and come out of the mouth eventually. And then sometimes the tusk will break off, and that can be through overuse, but normally there'll be some kind of a disease, maybe in the nerve, that rots away the tooth and it'll then eventually break out. So that's basically why sometimes you don't see tusks. And normally, if an elephant has lost both tusks, they were born without them, but often you will see an elephant with one tusk where they've broken the other one. There's probably been some kind of an abscess or disease, rotted away the root, which has caused an infection, and then the tusk will break. Thank you, Sharon. Right, let us carry on with these elephants. What I want you to do, just before we move, Andrew, if you can just get a sort of wide of where they are. First of all, I want you to understand that they are within 60 meters of us. There are 30 elephants. Now see if you can hear them moving. So you can probably hear the young bull off over there. He's breaking a few trees, but otherwise 30 elephants are moving almost soundlessly through an area that you and I would really struggle not to make a sound in. It's incredible. So, two lovely questions. One from Georgian in Illinois. It's just dropped out of my mind now. Oh yes, Georgian basically was just making the comment that it's the first time she's seen an elephant do takeout food. Yes, I actually think it's the first time I've seen that too. I think it's more playing, you know, sort of fiddling behavior / displacement behavior than it is genuine takeout. And then Edward's question, you want to know what happens to the discarded wood when the elephants drop it down. Does it burn in a fire, or do the termites take it, or does it just decay? Edward, I think you'll find very little will just decay out here. Mostly it'll be the termites that'll take it out. If there's a bushfire and there's a sufficient grass load, please hold on to your drinks, it's getting a bit rough out here, then absolutely it will burn, but mainly it will be termites. What's the head there? Mainly it'll be the termites and other sort of maybe wood borer insects, and other fungus will get in there, a couple of maybe bacteria to eat it, certainly biomass. Now, what's interesting here, we're coming close to the Djuma boundary, you can just see it through there, but what's interesting is that the vegetation has changed. We've come off the slope and we've come into an area of silver cluster leaf trees, which is a seep line, almost sharp, how sharp the distinction is between the two vegetation types. Right, we'll push out onto the road there and get a decent view. I hope. Andrew, quite a few thorns here, watch your head.
Alrighty.
Out, no thorns.
All good.
Yeah, so they're now heading pretty much for that water hole where I thought they might. Andrew's still going to be a bit bumpy through here. Big hole that I nearly drove into. Go, gently walking through here. Try and get around them so that we can have a nice view. Just going to do a bit of a detour here so I can drive more quickly without making too much noise. I wouldn't like to drive at this speed around them. It would probably cause a bit of consternation. So while Andrew may lose a bit of the skin on the top of his head, at least the elephants won't be offended by us. There we go. They're going to come out into that clearing eventually, Andrew. We'll get a quick look here. See, they are moving quite a long way to the north now, towards that water. There's takeout Tammy over there. Still with her takeout, in fact she's got a new takeout. Clearly in the throes of a growth spurt. She can't manage to be without food. We'll just watch them walk past here. They're going into some pretty thick stuff. which I'm not going to follow them into, but we will go around the other side. Lots of comments about why that elephant is taking takeouts. Some postulating that she might be taking it for kindling or marshmallows at the next fireside chat. Well, I think that's unlikely, but you know, you never know out here. So they're moving through there on a very defined game path, which you can't quite see, but it's definitely a route. Someone has just been disciplined very severely. See that one facing the wrong way, looking like it's in the naughty corner? So just as I was saying, they're on a defined game path, and that's because they probably use this path quite often to go to the water. Right, Andrew, we're not going to follow them through here. We're going to go around the other side and see if we can get them popping out, which I think will be less traumatic for you and the vehicle. Right, well, I'm driving around to the front of this herd as they go onto the game path towards the water. So careful, Andrew. Watch out for your dentures. We're going to go across to Scott and get an update from him. He's been making a massive effort trying to track these leopard this morning. I'm not sure what's happening, so we'll go across to him and see what is going on, and then we'll come back and have a look at these elephants. We're just going to drive around like that and see if we can get in front of the herd. We'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and both Jamie and myself are still trying our best to work out where this leopard has gone. We do keep finding new information. The latest tracks we had were on Inyala Road North that Jamie found, heading east and north towards this general area that we are in now. So she's been staying on the tracks. She's got time to focus on being on foot and trying to establish each individual footprints. And we have looped ahead in the hope that the animal is going to pop out here somewhere. But no luck yet. And happy that James has got you into a good position with that large herd of elephants. I'm sure a lot of you are happy to see them again. We were just chatting last night around the fire that the elephants have been few and far between over the last week or so. And it's great that we can not see the same animals every drive, but there is always something going on somewhere. And there are these male leopard tracks. I wonder if I missed them on the way, or if they are in fact new from between when we drove here. But it's going to be difficult to tell. I can just see one individual track. Tricky business this. Well, it is heading towards the waterhole, the Buffalo's waterhole, so that's good news. So he walked along this pathway, and then I can just see one track here heading straight towards you and Jandre. And again, we get closer. Like I say, I'm not sure if this is from before we drove here. There is a chance that I may have missed these tracks, or it could be very, very fresh. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop around. We're not far from another road, Hippo Pools Road, which he's heading towards. Please, can we get lucky? Jamie, I've just found his tracks crossing Guinea Road towards the Bateleur Road, Buffalo's Dam. I'm not sure if I missed them on my first drive along here, but we are quite close to Guinea itself. Okay, well, things are looking good, and Jamie's also going to now come into this area. There's a skittish male that we've yet to see, probably because he is skittish, but he does occur in these northern reaches. And who knows, with all the leopard dynamics that are changing, I wonder if there's not a chance that it is the skittish male who was actually last seen mating with Karula up on Buffalo's Hook, north of us. And if it is a skittish leopard, then we could track it for all we like, and it's probably just going to continue to hide from us. But I'm not convinced that it would be him, judging from where the tracks have come in central Juma. Like I said earlier, not to worry, James is doing his best to try and get you some more visuals of these elephant, but they are surprisingly managing to make life difficult for them despite their size. They are not playing ball. Don't tell me I missed these tracks earlier. It looks like I may have missed these tracks earlier. As they are here. And where do they go from here? Okay, well, the tracks do continue, so we are ever so slightly getting closer to this animal. When we went past this game trail originally, I would have expected him to stay on the road, because the little game trail feeds quite smoothly onto the road. But it looks like he may have just crossed straight over, leaving no tracks evident on the road, or at least not evident to me. So now we loop around again, loop-de-loop, looking for the leopards. We were asked how to distinguish between leopards tracks and lions tracks, and now Linda is asking how to distinguish between hyena and wild dog. They're quite similar tracks, Linda, and the main differences you will be looking for in a wild dog track to that of a hyena is size. Wild dogs are typically smaller than the hyena. Also, the wild dog in this area typically move in packs, so you'll see more than one track on a road or on a pathway, so that can help us, whereas hyena in this area usually move around alone. And the track of the wild dog, their front toenails from their two middle toes are distinctively quite long, and they often leave a very clear mark on the ground. So that's something I look for when I'm tracking wild dog, those front two claw marks. It's a very long and thin track also compared to that of a hyena, which is slightly more round. Ideally though, we would have two next to one another and then be able to point it out to you. And I've left, Stefan's got some wonderful tracking cards, but they are on James's vehicle, I believe. Or maybe they're in my room, I need to find them. Either way, they're either in James's vehicle or in my room. So what I'll do, Linda, is I'll bring those tracking cards out this afternoon and be able to show you exactly the difference, because they're perfect tracks, life size, and that way you'll get a good idea. So I've left Jamie again on the last sets of tracks, and now we are looping ahead so she can spend time on foot from trailing, and we can loop ahead and see if they haven't already crossed out of our northern boundary, which is possible. The tracks where we saw them earlier weren't far from the border with Buffalo's Hook. So that is a sad reality, but it's not over yet. And wouldn't it be nice if Jamie finds it on foot and calls us into the sighting? It won't be her first time finding leopard on foot here. The last time was when she found Sindile on foot, and that led to Shadow, who was also just around the next corner, and a Steenbok kill. So that was a great way for her to break the ice in tracking animals here. She has tracked lots of animals though in her career. But when you do move to a new location and start working in a new wilderness area, it's always nice to just break the ice, and she's done that wonderfully already. So this is our northeastern corner. On the right is Buffalo's Hook, and on the left is Juma. And with a little bit of luck, this leopard will still be in this little corner of ours. And thankfully this road's very easy to see tracks on, so if it has or hasn't crossed over, we'll be fairly certain about that, and then we can make our decision to find another plan thereafter. I just saw a little bit of movement on the edge of the road, but it's just an impala. Okay, well, there's good news. We're going to send you back to James, who is now in a great position for you to enjoy an elephant sighting. See you later.
Hello everybody, I'm sorry it took so long, but I thought these elephants in fact had taken flight, and by that I mean actually flown away, because I couldn't find them. But here they are, just through here, just feeding over there, still on the way to the waterhole I suspected they were going to. There they are. Hello, Leslie in California. Leslie, an interesting question and not a very pleasant one to have to answer. But basically, you want to know, is it true that elephants, when they lose their last set of teeth, actually some of them have crossed that road already, Andrew, these are the stragglers. You want to know, basically, when they lose their last set of teeth, do they then starve to death? Oh no, they're the rest there. The answer, Leslie, is I'm afraid, yes, they do sort of starve to death. And then they get skinnier and skinnier because they're unable to chew, break up the food sufficiently to get it, to derive enough nutrition from it. So unfortunately they do kind of starve to death after the sixth molar. The molars have eventually worn down. That normally happens at about, I think they get their last set of teeth at about 50 years, maybe a bit older than that, and then they've got that one set to see them through to the end of life. So in areas where they can eat softer vegetation, so for example like the Okavango, they don't need to eat quite so much wood, they will apparently live a bit longer than they will in an area like this, where in the winter months they must eat huge or chew quite a lot of wood, which eventually does wear the teeth down. Beautiful inside the mouth there, constantly open. And one of these you could see, I don't know if it's that one, Andrew. This one will come around the front. When this one walks past, just look on the side of the trunk. You can, there. See if you can get in there. On the left-hand side of the trunk, it's substantially greener than on the right-hand side. So just like I was saying to Jemps in Johannesburg, when they pick vegetation out off the ground, they twist their trunks normally either left or right, and they have a preference for one or the other. And this one is clearly greener on the left-hand side of the trunk than on the right, so probably twists its trunk, I think, to the right-hand side. There you can see it. And that little gentle whistling that you can hear in the background is not Andrew whistling with joy. That is the fork-tailed drongos that are so much in attendance all around these elephant herds. Beautiful eyes, lovely eyes, and anything with eyelashes here, like giraffe, for example, those eyelashes just help protect the eyes a bit when they're sticking their faces into particularly difficult vegetation. Get my fat bonce out of the way. Sorry, we're just pointing out that damp bit at the back of the legs, and I think that probably comes from going to the loo, actually. Unless it's a young bull who's coming into first must, but I don't think A, that it's a young bull, and B, that'd be very small to be coming into must. Such a beautiful elephant, this one. Lovely tusks. You can see the construction of the skeleton. Just go up to the back there, Andrew, if you don't mind. There you can see the spine. Now that's normally an indication of some form of irritation, which is what it is now too, but that's a young animal, so we're not going to panic and reverse at high speed. It's just a kind of warning to say, look how big I am. Fortunately, this one's not quite as big as it thinks it is. I think this is a young bull. Just watching us very carefully. And is now a bit confused because we didn't leave in terror, and so now he's just fiddling around a bit and feeling a little awkward about things. What are you laughing at? A bit more comfortable now, so we'll have a little taste of Acacia gerardii, the red thorn. There you see, there was no need for conflict. We're all friends here. Andrew, do you want to try and get this drongo here? For those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about when I talk about a forked-tailed drongo, there is a magnificent example of one, sitting very close by, totally unaffected by us, and you can see the very distinctive forked tail. Lovely red eye, look at that, you don't often see that. That's beautiful. Duiker running through the distance there. It really is getting, it feels kind of summer hot, doesn't it? I mean, the temperature's probably hit 27 degrees already, which is 80 Fahrenheit. This one is still, and I'm not sure if you can pick it up, he's not making a huge effort to eat. So definitely watching us and kind of, one hesitates to say enjoy, but is certainly investigating us and perhaps just sort of curious as to what our intentions are. And you know, it's a bit of a difference from his normal daily grind of eating himself into oblivion all day. Young bulls are often like this. They'll sort of come around the car or come close to the car and have a look and see. Now that, the reason they've reacted like this, you may have heard him make a noise, and they all looked towards the road as a vehicle went past. I also looked at the road with some alarm because I see it as the honeysucker or septic tank cleaner, and that's probably why they were so offended by it. I was fairly offended myself. Right, let us just reverse back a bit, and oh no, here comes the rest of the herd. We don't need to go anywhere. Yes, yes, yes. Here they come. They've clearly just been given the order to move, and here they go. And when I say that, it is a very clear moment. When they stop eating, they turn around and they move off in one direction. Definitely that the matriarch has given them some kind of indication that it's time to move. I think that tree's probably done, buddy. I don't think you're going to get anything out of that. Yeah, he's given up on that one. You might also be able to hear a woodpecker pecking away. Let's go, Andrew, let's go up to that scotia tree there then. Very beautiful green tree, and see if we can't sit in its shade and enjoy the elephants. The beating African sun threatens to heat us. Bumpy here on the termite mounds. We're going to pop across quickly, have a look at some different bits and pieces that he's got, and I'll see you now. I promise not to lose.
Awesome. No. He's looking a bit nervous. I wonder who it could be. If this will help us. Small to be Kunyuma or quarantine. Go ahead, Jan. Look at this. Well, I'm sure you got some great views there. I'm looking for Huli. Look at that tail twitching. Position again ever so slightly. They are such sneaky. It's not going to be easy because there's a lot of bush. They are such sneaky. It's not going to be easy because there's a lot of bush. He was in fact here while that Inyala was here. If he slunk in after us, his tracks, even though I was checking as carefully as possible. Well, what a treat after all this time spent seeing only the leopard's footprints, and even officially own up to giving up. I told Jamie it's a wrap, it's time to leave this leopard to its own devices. And there it was, right in front of us. And apparently the feed's not giving, you're not getting a very good picture of this leopard, so I'll let you out. Only the leopard's footprints, and even officially own up to giving up. I told Jamie it's a wrap, it's time to leave this leopard to its own devices. And there it was, right in front of us. And apparently the feed's not giving, you're not getting a very good picture of this leopard, so I'll let you out that identifying the different leopards can't get a as well try, because the view you're getting now I'm sure isn't best. So let's take a bit of a gamble and see what we can work out from the other side here. There may just be a little way that we can, oh, could you? Okay. There's a tiny gap that we can get you through here. How's that looking? I may have to inch forward a few meters, but he is looking directly towards us. Forwards, backwards. Oh, yeah. Is that good? What? Okay. Oh no, we are creeping back ever so slightly. Donna, I wish I could tell you which leopard this is, but I don't have a clue. It's a young male, that's all that I know. I can't tell if it's Quarantine or Kunyuma. I haven't seen them for months. And I'm inclined to think that it's not him. I think it could be another male, possibly Bahuti. And again, this is just speculation as to other young males around here. There is also a young male, the son of the Nkanyeni female. I forget their names. Craig, what's the name of Nkanyeni's young male cub? Copy, thanks. So according to Craig, there's another leopard called Mkombo, son of Nkanyeni. I'm not too sure, I'm just going through the young males who could possibly be here. The reason we can tell he's young is from his size. He's not very big, and he's also flawless. No scratches on his face or his ears. And I'm told the stream is getting a bit better, so you should be getting some better visuals. Johan, you're more than welcome to join as a third. And I really hope some of you do manage to find out who it is for us. Like I said, you guys are often so much better at IDing them than we are. He appears to have 3 spots on his right whisker line, just above those white the right whisker line. But the left whisker line is now what we need to try and find. Is his face behind the tree? Okay, well, what we're going to do is, I think this position we've got a good view of, so we can try and reposition back to the other side one last time. Unless I just roll back ever so slightly. That's probably too much.
Yeah, no.
Okay, let's go back. Excitement, we have gone a little bit over time, which doesn't happen very often. So glad to be spending some extra time, but we're just desperate to get you guys involved in trying to help identify this leopard. Right here, but Jandre is dealing with a strange angle. But we may just be able to get you a few shots of his face. Affirmative, Jamie, no problem. Not a good visual at the moment, but you're more than welcome to join. You just come down into the northeastern corner of the dam. I'm hearing you're getting much better picture now. And I just hope we can get a slight view of his face. That way you'll be able to try and ID this leopard a little bit better. There you can see the 3 little spots, I'm guessing. His left side I'm battling to see clearly as he grooms himself. Well, I wonder how many times he was at this waterhole while we were driving along. It is a 3-3 spot pattern that he does have. What I'm going to try and do is one last attempt at getting you a better view of his face. So 1 second and we will have another view. Just going to He's just slinking off now, but we may be able to get a few last views of him. Oh, let's just reverse, sorry Jandre. We may get an open view of him here, crossing this little clearing. Let us just have one nice look at you. Look back at us now. That works perfectly. There we go. Beautiful. Well, we got lucky. I thought he was going to try and slink off from us. But it looks like he's doing quite the opposite, and now he's putting on a bit of a show. Come on, leopard ID experts, help us find out who this is. Well, a lot of you are saying it's Kunyuma, Jane and Ellen. So thanks very much for that. And maybe it's simply because I haven't seen him for so long, I've forgotten what he looks like. Well, folks, we might be able to just sneak you one last view of him. going to get you one last close-up visual. You good there, Jean-Andre? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, the flies are giving him a hard time. Well, if it is you, Kunyuma, it's great to see you again. And I'm confident that Ellen has got it right. I don't know you as well, Jane, and I'm not saying you are wrong, but Ellen has been watching the show for a long time and follows the leopards very closely. So the fact that the two of you feel the same way is a good sign. Nikki also has become quite an expert at identifying the leopards, and she also thinks it was him at first glance. Whew. Okay, folks, well, I think that is going to be the last visual, and it was a great one at least. Thanks very much to Jamie, who helped us hugely in finding this leopard. If it wasn't for her, we would probably still be driving around in the wrong place. So a good example of teamwork this morning, and also big thanks to James and him handling most of the drive. So also a big thank you to you guys, the viewers, because if it wasn't for you, this show wouldn't be going on. And well done to Jean-Andre on camera for putting up with all the fruitless tracking for the first few hours, but I guess we made it up in the last moments. We are going to say goodbye. Also big thanks to Nikki and Lou in the final control, and Jean-Andre is just going to try and get you one last view, I think, of this leopard as it sneaks off. We will see you all on the Sunset Safari.